Hello! Sorry, Chris and Jamie fans, I'm Robin from All Time Conspiracies, and I'm invading the channel for an exclusive look at the hidden meanings in Hollywood's biggest blockbusters. So let's begin. Number 10. Aliens. In the mid-1980s, Vietnam combat movies were all the rage. You had Platoon, you had Full Metal Jacket, and Aliens isn't any different. Aliens is the combat sequel to sci-fi horror Alien, and it follows Ellen Ripley as she returns to the planet of the first film with a new crew of expendable Marines. They fly in futuristic helicopters, wear green camo, despite the unforested industrial environment that they're in, and they wear bandanas that wouldn't look out of place in Apocalypse Now. So it's not difficult to see Aliens' plot as a metaphor for the Vietnam War. The military authorities are depicted as incompetent and the civilian leaders as corrupt for putting their soldiers' lives in danger in the hope of personal profit. Although the American soldiers have technically superior weapons, they're still no match for the aliens, who use unconventional tactics, the cover of darkness and an element of surprise to pick off the American invaders one by one. This is all very similar to the guerrilla warfare tactics employed by Viet Cong. Even the incendiary grenades are basically napalm. Number 9. X-Men. Whilst the X-Men comics have always been used to tackle themes of civil rights and racism, the X-Men films are an open metaphor for the civil rights issue of the 21st century: gay rights. The character's mutant powers develop independently from a character's upbringing during puberty. Just like sexuality for most of us, this can leave the mutants feeling isolated or ashamed of their powers. The mutants even have to come out to their parents, just like Bobby in the second film.
Have you tried not being a mutant?
Similar to sexuality, most of the characters are able to hide their powers if they want, in order to assimilate better into society. And Xavier argues that mutation is not a disease, mirroring typical arguments surrounding homosexuality. And in case you still don't believe me, director Bryan Singer and Ian McKellen, who are both gay by the way, have pretty much confirmed this one. Number 8. District 9. District 9 is about a group of aliens who have accidentally landed on Earth, only for them to be confined for decades in a government camp in South Africa. It's a thinly veiled allegory for the dehumanization of Africans under the apartheid regime. In particular, it's a metaphor for the forced physical relocation of inhabitants of District 6 in Cape Town during the 1970s. It pretty obviously explores themes of xenophobia and segregation, but its trump card is when racist bureaucrat Vickers physically transforms into an alien, and therefore proves that racial interbreeding is definitely not a bad thing. Number 7. Inception. So whilst most of us were still trying to work out the ending of Inception, movie critic Devin Faraci suggests that none of that even matters. He says that Christopher Nolan isn't even telling a film about dreams in the first place. According to him, Inception is actually a film about making a film. Just look at the story. The team scout locations, discuss how to build a convincing story, and even have a big moneymaker financing the whole thing. Each member of the Dream Hacker Squad has a role that corresponds to a player in film production, and Fisher is the audience, whose perception of the world is changed by manipulating his emotions.
I guess it wasn't to your liking.
Number 6. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? It depicts a world where live action meets animation, and cartoon characters interact directly with humans, yet they're treated as second-class citizens. And in fact, when cartoon character Roger Rabbit is framed for murder, human private detective Eddie Valiant has to put aside his cartoon prejudices in order to investigate it. Throughout the film, the cartoons are shown to be heavily discriminated against despite their success in show business. They're banned from human bars and are left to dwell with others of their own kind in Toontown, a metaphor for segregation if ever I saw one. Human characters also regularly refer to the cartoon characters by the derogatory term toons, which is just one letter off a real racial slur. It really isn't hard to see that the cartoon-human relationship in Who Framed Roger Rabbit says a lot about the racial segregation of 1940s America. Number 5. The Dark Knight. In The Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan uses the Joker to embody the anxieties and terrorist threats faced by the modern US government. The Joker is motivated by nothing more than the desire to watch the world burn. He blows up civilian targets, manipulates others into taking up suicide missions, and threatens to blow up himself and uses homemade phone-operated explosives to carry out his anarchy. At the time, most viewers didn't consider these tactics as familiar to traditional bad guys, and that's because they're the real tactics attributed to terrorists by the Bush administration. Batman, like the Bush administration, acts outside the law and uses enhanced interrogation and mass surveillance to justify catching one criminal. But the film doesn't endorse the Bush administration's tactics. Although everyone thinks he's become a serial killer to defeat the bad guys, he's actually apprehended the terrorists without excessive force. Honorable mention, Captain America the Winter Soldier. It focuses on themes of global government surveillance, drone warfare, and targeting civilians in the name of national security. What is it with comic book movies and politics? Number 4. Drag Me to Hell. Drag Me to Hell tells the terrifying story of a bank loan officer who is cursed by a gypsy after she denies the old lady a loan. But as much as gypsy curses are terrifying, it has been argued that Christine is in reality tormented by her internal demons, specifically the eating disorder bulimia. The majority of the terrifying curse Christine experiences involves eating, choking, or vomiting. So rather than a gypsy curse, maybe Christine is simply suffering from an extreme fat kid syndrome. None of the other characters seem to be able to see or hear the terrifying curses that plague Christine, which strongly suggests the curse is psychological. Number 3. Spider-Man. Spider-Man has probably the most relatable origin story of all superheroes, and I'm not just talking about the insect bite. The new body hairs, the changes in body shape, and the white sticky stuff shooting out of his body? Yep, Peter Parker's superhero birth is just old-fashioned puberty.
Yeah, big change.
The change to the webbing is actually quite significant, because for the majority of Spider-Man's history in the comic books, he's had to rely on artificially made mechanical shooters to spin his webs. But in the film, the white sticky goo is purely organic, produced by his body. The introduction of Spider-Man's web is directly linked to his sexual feelings towards his high school crush, Mary Jane. He even spends ages by himself, practicing to make the white stuff again using a variety of hand techniques.
Go! Go! Go, web, go!
But it sounds like he's got the hang of it. Number 2. RoboCop. 1987's RoboCop is an awesome slice of dystopian sci-fi action, setting the Frankenstein story in the future of law enforcement. But in an interview in 2010, director Paul Verhoeven revealed that RoboCop was more than just a badass cyborg, but in fact, he is the American Jesus. The story follows morally upstanding cop Alex Murphy, who is the shining light in old Detroit. In his attempt to rid the city of crime, Murphy is crucified for his beliefs in justice before being resurrected, albeit in this case by the miracle of science rather than religion. He's installed with 3 religiously significant primary directives that could have been taken straight out of the New Testament: to serve the public trust, protect the innocent, and uphold the law. And if that wasn't convincing enough, he can basically walk on water. Number 1. The Shining. Now, the first time I watched The Shining, I ended it wondering what on earth it's actually about. But one early interpretation by ABC reporter Bill Blakemore argues that the film is a metaphor for the genocide of Native Americans. The film begins with the writer Jack Torrance and his family agreeing to look after an isolated hotel, which the viewers quickly learn was built on the top of a Native American burial ground. And it's all the Native American dead who are represented by the blood that Danny envisions flooding the hallways. The hotel is also full of subtle Native American motifs, which as Jack descends into madness, he repeatedly hits with a very waspish baseball. And when Jack kills Chef Halloran, he bleeds out onto a Native American motif, further representing the slaughtering of an ethnic minority by white colonizers. And one last clue may be in the film's obscure ending shot, which is a vintage photo dated July the 4th, America's Independence Day. An ironic reference to the fact that Independence Day doesn't really apply to the country's indigenous people. So, what did you think of those hidden meanings in films? Are they all baloney, or is there actually more to these films than meets the eye? Share it in the comments below. And if you'd like to learn more about hidden meaning and symbolism in blockbusters, head on over to All Time Conspiracies now to look at Disney's subliminal messages. Thanks for watching.